Okay, this time around the map is Twin Rivers. And like I said, as we were coming in, it is Zlo versus Petrick. Petrick taking the traditional blue color that he pretty much always takes, and Zlo in the lovely green on the left-hand side. Maybe if we can get loaded in, there it is. We'll be able to see what the factions are. Looks like Zlo is taking UEF. Petrick, Seraphim. Seems to be a common theme going on here. Let's see what these guys' early builds entail. Twin Rivers is one of those maps that I have a little bit of a problem with, because I always have a little bit of a hard time deciding what is the most important thing to build first. And this does look like a second air build, if I am correct in my judgment. We got land factory first. Nope, he is prepping for an air factory, but he is going second land, third air on a total of 9 P-gens. So I'm going to have to tuck this one away in my knowledge base. Engineer out first, which is probably going to build this third mass extractor, then move over here to grab some manual reclaim. Over on Zlo's side, we do have 2 land factories and an air factory scheduled, but I do not know which one is first. He's going for a P-gen before his mass extractors, so I kind of have to guess that the air factory is going to be sooner in his build, but I'm not entirely sure on that one. Manual reclaim going down for Zlo on the bottom left-hand side. That is going to let him make up for not building the mass extractor first thing. Hopefully this build works out for him quite well. We will dive into the eco in just a second. He does have a raiding unit out. Mech Marine headed up the left-hand side away from the ACU, probably going to try to pick off an engineer that moves in this direction. While we do have a Selen moving out for Petrick to scout said raiding parties. Let's go ahead and check on the ecos. So this is what a brilliant economy balance looks like. Stalling in neither mass nor power, but negative on both, perfectly pacing his construction in order to make use of every iota of mass, just barely stalling right before he gets to the rocks that he needs to reclaim to survive. Now he's -4, he'll get into some more things. That is a lovely thing to behold. Petrick, I am sure, looked almost exactly the same, because we're now seeing exactly balanced mass income, slightly negative power income, and he is going to move on with his build. That is what separates the pro players from the scrubs like me. They are able to actually execute a beginning build order with precision and grace. Okay, so there's a lot of raiding going on from Zlo. He's actually on his 3rd Mech Marine out. One of them is headed to the back. 2 of them are headed directly to the rear, and 1 is headed around to the right-hand side. Hopefully any early combat units will be siphoned off to the left, thanks to the raiding on that side, and he'll be able to pick up an easy engineer kill on the rear 2 mass extractors over here. Now see, this is where I need to reevaluate some of the strategies that I use on a daily basis. That was a nice little bit of micro there, but sadly not enough. Another Mech Marine moving on this side, which is probably going to be scouted by those Selens that are everywhere. I would have gone for these 2 mass extractors first. Would have made sense to me, but instead the earlier engineers go to the expansions in order to get those online more quickly. The walking distance is not very far here. That's a quick engineer straight out of the factory, and this will probably start building land factories on the opposing side as well in order to build more units. On this map, I tend to underbuild early combat units, and that ends up biting me in the buttocks later, because other players will build those combat units and then will take the expansions away from me, which can kind of lead to a bad time. Selen out on front, doing that thing that I just described there for you folks. It is going to snatch away an engineer that will try to get in range. Oh my goodness! That was almost a sneaky reclaim. Selen turning back around, going to give chase to that engineer, and with the extra range will be able to kill it. That was very close indeed. That is going to vet that scout up pretty hard. Only 1 kill in the bank, but because of the new balance with the veterancy, since the engineer is worth much more mass, it's going to get slightly more than 1 vet off of that Engie kill. Second engineer comes in. That is going to prove too much though, and Selen goes away. Mech Marine was able to successfully kill off an engineer on this side and is going to now move into the back of the base. Not going to stick around to try to kill that mass extractor, because there isn't really any way that it would be able to before a reaction came in from Petrick, and that Mech Marine is more valuable alive and killing things than dead, having secured a single T1 mechs. So Mech Marine going to be up here, going to knock down this mass extractor, but realize that there is no engineer in range, and move down towards the other Mass Extractor taking a guess as to where that engineer went. Actually not. There's an air scout overhead, so he knows exactly where it went, and he is going to go and secure that kill. Looks like we've got 2 land factories, 3 land factories online now for Zlo, who is also building a 4th and then queuing probably for more adjacency on a land factory over there. So 4 total land factories. We are now looking at a 5th coming online for Petrick. So his build power is going to exceed Zlo's. However, his economy is slightly behind due to very effective early raiding from Zlo. On the other hand, Zlo is going to lose some of his engineers on this side because he did not have as many combat units out early as Petrick did. He had to spend his time building engineers because he built a few mech marines first off. So now he's playing catch up. I think he is overall going to come out ahead though, because only a single tank got through on this side. He's probably even going to save all of his mass extractors alive if he gets over there relatively quickly. And now he is securing all of his bases. Seeing an engineer over here on the water makes me wonder, is Zlo going to go for Navy? That would be a very interesting move, and he might actually be able to make it work because he does have his ACU on this side, should be able to secure this, prevent any Zooey spam from going after the naval factories. But on the other hand, he might have that engineer over there to edge build a factory on this side and not have to build a transport. There are several viable explanations for this. Engineer headed over to the other side. This is the strength of raiding. This expansioneer is going to take 1 minute and 13 seconds to get to this mass extractor and build it, which is quite a bit of downtime, quite a bit of mass loss. Sam is going to go down. Striker just barely surviving on 12 HP, likely due to a lucky hit from having intel, whereas the opponent did not. And Petrick is now dropping, so he is moving a transport absolutely loaded to the gills with engineers over to this side, going to place a drop right on the mountain, which is a bit of a weird spot. Probably won't allow the transport to actually drop there, but funny to see nonetheless. He is going to get that thing secured very quickly, get those mass extractors online and earning some income, and then probably drop a factory in order to be able to defend it quite well. Also, fair bit of reclaim on this side. Anywhere you see the gray mountains, there are rocks around them. Lots of it has been manually reclaimed closer to the bases, but there is still quite a substantial amount to be had across the map. Zlo moving up with his commander. Petrick has moved to the left in order to cover his expansion, so he now has his manufacturing base on this side, and he has his ACU on the left to try to stave off any units that come after him. Not sure why there's 2 radars there. I guess one is a backup system, but it seems odd to have your backup system so closely tied with your primary systems. 6 land factories with a T2 online. Petrick picking up the T2 slightly earlier than Zlo. I don't think he actually has anything scheduled for T2 quite yet. Does not look like it, but he does have a total of 8 factories with a 9th coming online very soon. Actually, a 10th if you count the one in the back that is probably only producing engineers and will lead to increased air production sometime in the future, I would imagine. That is going to be quite the factory advantage to the south side. However, you must remember how strong the Ilshibas are versus T1. Those Ilshibas will be able to more than pay for themselves on a mass-to-mass basis, absolutely wrecking any amount of strikers that come in. The pillars would be able to deal with it slightly better because they are a faster unit, will be able to run down the Ilshibas, but it's still a bad matchup. So Petrick, very good moving to this T2 phase and not skipping it like he did in the last game. So T1 unit successfully killed off. Both of these mass extractors are now moving to the rear. It would appear that this Ilshiva has become stuck on a power generator. Pathfinding issues for the win. So now Petrick is going to lose a couple more mass extractors and maybe some engineers, thanks to a boondoggling of the pathfinding. I need to get my tongue untied from the roof of my mouth at some points. It is difficult to talk quickly for such a length of time. More units moving south from Petrick. He has now managed to get a nice little clump rolling. I doubt he'll be able to make it fully into the base. because the incredible amount of production that Zlo has set up is now rolling units off exclusively to the right, save a handful directed to the north from before. You can see how often these move orders are changing as Zlo is keying where exactly he wants his units to go. I keep seeing the little blue lines move as I'm looking at these things. He's got some queued up here to move through the back end of the base. He's now successfully run by on the left as well. Petrick just doesn't have enough units at the moment to actually move out and secure what he needs to. He needs to get some more factories online. He's got that T2 with relatively mild assistance, but if he's not able to push out enough units to secure the entire width of the Twin Rivers map, he is going to be in for a bad time. This is why you need mobile units, and a lot of them, unless you have a choke point on the map. Theoretically, I know the map is divided into two halves, but still, it is pretty much a free-flowing of units from one side to the other over the entire width, and even if your units are stronger, they can only be in one place at a time, and that can lead to very bad things happening to your outside expansions, as we're seeing here. Let's actually take a little break. We're going to go in and look at the economies of these guys. Zlo rocking 50 mass income and 640 power. Lovely balance there, right in the middle of the spectrum, pausing and operating as need be to maintain his supplies. Petrick is overflowing a very, very small amount of power, most of that due to tree reclaim. He is at 37 eco, so quite far behind, 13 or 14 mass per tick in the deficit. Roughly the same on power. And actually Zlo, he is pausing more as time goes on with his construction projects because of the lack of storage. Zlo is still building T1 power because he doesn't have a T2 factory of any regard quite yet. That is a drop. Nasty little business. Petrick countering that aggression even as he is getting hit in his own expansions. Nicely done there. Okay, zooming back in here. We've got 3 Ilshivas on this side, which should theoretically be able to deal with all of these T1 as long as they continue to kite and micro, especially considering the fact that most of these are artillery and anti-air. And we now have more Ilshivas shuffling off over there. Got a T2 support factory online, so more Ilshivas to come, and a second T2 support factory actually. So many, many more Ilshivas are about to hit the field. This is going to force a reaction from Zlo, because after a certain point, once those Ilshivas reach critical mass, he will not be able to succeed using only T1. We now have an Ilshiva on this side, which has successfully raided the base along with a handful of T1 units. Those tanks are now going to die, the mass extractors are offline, and that will knock Zlo down a peg on that economy advantage. Probably looking much more similar on their incomes now. We do have a Tech 2 mass extractor, 2 Tech 2 mass extractors over here. Zlo putting down an energy storage now, because since he's got T2 out on the field, he can use that overcharge to eliminate those units very efficiently with his ACU. That's kind of the danger of the T2 phase. If you only have a couple of units and you wander too close to the commander, you're gonna have a bad time, because that thing is gonna die to overcharge and you're gonna lose all of that mass. T1 units don't die as quickly from a mass perspective to overcharge. And of course, T3 units, the most valuable single units of all, well, okay, outside of T4s, are the absolute worst to have overcharged. Map control is now sitting at almost exactly 50-50. There is another Ilshiva in the back. Actually, that is the same Ilshiva that ran from this direction, wandering a little too close to that T1 point defense and shedding about 2/3 of its health. 3/4, only 160 left. Couple of Lobo shots, and that son of a gun is out of here. Come on. You can die to it. 92, 44, and kablooey. Very effective raiding unit indeed, but alas, it is now lost. Lots of interceptors on Zlo's side. He technically does have the air control. However, there is a flak out, a mobile flak for Petrick, which is going to provide a little bit of area denial for any air. 5 Ilshivas moving through the center. That is a goodly number of Ilshivas, probably able to handle themselves versus a good number of T1 units. Of course, they can still be swamped just like any unit can. They will be able to secure this side, though, kill off these mass extractors, and cause a lot of pain and heartache on the right side of Zlow's base. This T2 HQ still pumping out Ilshevas. More engineers building from this factory, moving up to reclaim, it looks like, and a T2 power generator coming online in the rear of Petrik's base. Something that I would be doing if I were him would be building more air, but I suppose these guys do know what they're doing better than I do, seeing as they are both 2,000 plus rated players. But I probably should not be concerned about giving my advice. All 5 Ilshevas still alive, moving towards the south side. They are going to come in range of this T1 point defense, which is going to do quite a bit of damage to those. That could have been avoided by going on the other side of the rock, but of course Zlo is making that as difficult as possible with those OP wall sections. Ilsheva is going to make it out. All 5 of them still alive. No! I spoke too soon. 1 of them going down, 2 of them going down to well-placed point defenses. Now that the wall sections are built on this, it will be a little bit more difficult to kill. Those 3 Ilshevas are going to be reduced to 2 with the falling of another comrade in arms. There's another reinforcement coming up. Looks like those Ilshevas are going to try to focus fire the point defense with the help of a Lobo. They will be able to take it out, but as this expansion is falling to Ilshevas, the north side is falling to the T1 swarms of Zlo. He is not giving up on this T1 spam, not by a long shot. He's going to wipe out all 4 mexes once again. Petrik going to be forced into a defensive position with his ACU. Probably would have liked to see a couple of T1 tanks going over there to secure those mexes as well, just for a little bit more insult added to the injury. But Zlo is going to move off in this direction with the tank, split his forces around the ACU so as not to lose as many as possible. Ilsheva's trying to narrow down the numbers on these strikers, but they've gotten within firing range. Strikers returning now, seeing the Ilshevas. They totally could have wrecked their faces, but they are going to return. Zlo probably does not have radar coverage that far forward, and I now see a T2 gunship on the field. This is going to be a bad time for Petrik, because Zlo does have very strong air control, and as long as he stays away from any flak, he will be fine. Let's take inventory of our flak. 1 there, 1 there, both moving to the left-hand side, probably expecting a snipe attempt on the commander. Gunship has stalled, is now on an attack move over to this side. We'll be able to take out both of these mass extractors. We're probably going to see flak moving back in this direction very quickly. Nope, response from the interceptors. Flak still moving in that direction. Zlo a little slow on the uptake with his air. He probably could have saved that and secured an even stronger air superiority position. Now the Ilshevas are in the numbers that they need to be. 6 on this side. They'll be able to deny pretty much any number of T1 that move over there. Janus coming out of the air factory. There are Ilshevas on this side now. Zlo overcharging post-haste. I don't think they're going to be able to kill off this T2 HQ. Of course, the damage is coming in. Zooey's adding to the mayhem with their shots, but the engineers healing just as fast as they're able to do the damage. Poor Janus is dying on the operating table. They are being built, but not making it out of the factory. Now the Zooey is out of range, so that will be the last one that dies, I think. Nope, it didn't even die. Good deal. So that one is going to live. And now those 2 Ilshevas are reduced to trying to pick off as many T1 mass extractors as possible before they meet their untimely end. Looks like Petrik has been upgrading T2 mass extractors pretty hard. He's even got one in the rear of the base. He's using those Ilshevas to try to exert as much map control as possible, fending off these attacks, but still, some of these run-bys are turning into nasty business. We're going to take a look at the economies now. Whiteheart, otherwise known as Petrik, at 60 mass per tick with 1,000 power income versus 63 for Zlo, exactly even. He does also have a T2 mass extractor in the back, I just now realized. And 1,000 power on that side as well. 8,300 reclaim versus 77. So these guys are running neck and neck, exactly even on rating, on map control, on tech level. We got T2 air versus T2 land. This is turning into a very interesting game indeed. Let me get back out to the main view. Oh, that was not the proper order. Got to have the space in there. And now we are back. There's Janus's pooling up on the left-hand side, which could turn into a bit of a nasty mess for Petric if he is not careful. That might even turn into an ACU snipe, and Petric is building T1 anti-air quite frantically around his ACU, I'm sure in an attempt to mitigate just that. Notice that he is spreading them out because he knows Januses have some of the most massive area of effect of any bomber in the game, and they are devastating to clumped up units, especially when you get up into those kinds of numbers. It does look like Whiteheart is catching up on air production, though. Of course, any mass that you're putting into fighter bombers is not mass sunk into interceptors, and the interceptors are stronger from an air point of view. However, with this many Janus and this many interceptors, I have absolutely no doubt that in a dedicated air fight, Zlo would still win. Zlo, speaking of, is moving up to the front line with his ACU in an attempt to fend off even more Ilshivas. Black dying to the napalm from those T2 bombers, a prompt response, and good deal knocking out the AA as quickly as possible. You'll notice that the damage induced by the napalm is very, very slow now. They still deal the same total amount of damage. It is just dealt over a longer period of time. That was a direct nerf to their ability to strafe ground targets. So if you're hitting stationary targets, they will take the exact same amount of damage from the Janus as they did a couple of balance patches ago. However, if you have high health mobile units, you can walk out of the napalm. When you have that many Januses, obviously this is not as much of an option, but it does allow for the epicness of the T1 kills from the Janus, same as before, while kind of nerfing the overpowered aspect of hitting T2 and T3 armies. Cool little balance change that came in, I think it was last patch? No, it would be patch before now. Because we just did have the infamous equilibrium change patch, so that would be from a little while ago. So now that there's no flak on the front line, Zlo has to worry a little bit less about his air engagements. He is going to be able to knock out those couple of stray interceptors that wandered in too far to the base, and things have gotten a little bit quiet. That is a bad move, moving all of those things up with no flak coverage. Closest flak is in the rear right here. Those Januses are going to be able to absolutely shred those Ilshivas as they come through. Lost the T1 point defense on the front side. That's not particularly great. In come the Januses, Petric realizing his mistake and immediately reversing course, trying to dodge as much as he can. But that is just such a huge amount of napalm. Several Ilshivas dead, many more wounded in that engagement. Scouts coming around the outside edge. I need to pay attention to what is going on in some of these bases. I'm amazed that there's not been a T3 move from Zlo as of yet. That seems very odd indeed. On the opposite edge of things, we are still pumping out T2s. We've now got shielding going down in the base over the power supplies because Petric, I am sure, is in mortal fear of having a massive Janus attack fall on his base and wreak all kinds of havoc. A shift G move on this would be absolutely devastating. Looks like Zlo is going all in on the ACU snipe, flying directly over, much anti-air. And he's gonna, no, he's just gonna break the shield on the first pass. Interceptors coming in, lots of Januses left, but now they're gonna have to fly over flak as well. I don't think this is gonna be enough. I think that was a horrible mistake, going after the ACU like that. Petric navigating as best he can amidst the napalm, heading for the freer, greener pastures away from the fire. Zlo throwing out a GG there. He was all in on that mess, and now the Ilshivas are going to move into the base. GG assisted NG Factory at start instead of unit. Should have played Cybern. No, I really think you should have bombed out the base. With that many Januses, he could have killed all the T1 factories, all the T1 power, one of the T2 power generators. At that point, I don't think the shield was quite built, so he may have even been able to take out these T2 power generators, and he could have taken out every single T1 and T2 engineer in this entire thing. 2 passes was what he got. 2 passes. Definitely could have done it, and it would not have turned out this way. I think that was very foolish. Janus are bad, horrible at ACU sniping. They just can't deal enough single target damage to be used for that unless you have even more ludicrously high numbers of Janus than Zlo had. But I think now we're going to start seeing the slow caving in of Zlo's side. The amount of units moving his direction is too damn high. He's moved his ACU to the rear. He is preparing to accept his fate. I don't think this is going to turn out well for him. Also, all of that Janus production on this side was what lost him the air battle. Petrick was able to outproduce him in interceptors by quite a wide margin. Unfortunately, he was out of fuel on some of them, but it was still enough when paired with the flag to secure a total air win. Interceptors on this side now, picking off the lonely Janus. And I still don't know why he is funneling Janus over to that side. Seems like an odd thing to do indeed. I think he's just completely given up. So we will wait, see how it turns out. The ACU will die very shortly, I'm sure. Despite the rank difference, thought Zlo would have this. He had more extensive radar coverage than Petrick. He lost air because he did wait too long and didn't find air when he went to kill. Yes, all accurate statements from the chat. Shields block the initial projectile damage, not the full damage? Question. Yes. The shielding, if you saw, when the shield dropped, the napalm burned outside the shield and not inside the shield. So I think when the napalm drops on the shield, it does its damage to the shield, but it doesn't damage under the shield, from what I could see. I may be wrong on that, but from what I could see, that was the case. Well, Janus is winning an air fight. That's an odd thing to see. He's now in full air control once again, and he will begin napalming all of the T2 units running in. Looks like he is not going to make an attempt, or not going to give up completely. He is going to make an attempt at defending the base and dying as slowly as possible, which I guess we can all respect. Those units will keep on a-coming. Zlo is the person who is the type of person to try silly stuff. Yes, absolutely he is. When you get to this rank level, 2000 versus 2300 rank, I really don't think there's that much difference in skill. If you look at the global rankings, there is a distinct gap. Like a 500 to an 800 player, there is key game knowledge that is gained, that is necessary to get to the 800 rank. From 800 to 1000, I don't feel like there's a big change, but I think there's another huge shift at 1200. Like 1200 is where a lot of people kind of stick, and that 1200 range is another huge leap forward in game knowledge over people who are at the 800 rank. Then you move up to like 15 to 1600. That's a pretty big step as well, and where you start seeing the really good 1v1 players. And then when you hit the 1800 rank, that's like pro level, I would say. So 18 or 1900 is your last big step. Where anybody who reaches 1900 rank has a pretty complete knowledge of the game and excellent playing skills. And then from 19 to 23 or 24, whatever the highest rated player is right now, yeah, there's going to be a difference, but I don't feel like it's a significant enough difference to lead to bad games. But that's just my opinion. All right, that is the end of that round. That is going to wrap everything up for this video, guys. If you enjoyed it, feel free to drop a like and share it with someone. If you want to support the channel, catch the streams, or join the Discord, check out the links in the description. Thank you all for being at least partially insane, and I will see you in the next one.